Hey YouTube fans, Eric Hayden here in the garden today. Today I want to talk about getting rid of weeds in between the roses themselves, but especially the rose beds where you walk. The last video we covered weeding, we covered putting down a pre-emergent, certain things in the bed itself, but I want to show you something that I'm starting to work on this spring that may help you specifically away from the roses. Some of the principles apply the same, but I want to focus more on the kind of the paths. Raise your hand if you have problems with weeds. That should be pretty much all of us, especially away from the roses in the path. Sometimes they can get out a little bit out of control. So the first thing, anytime you're doing any type of spray, whether it's a fungicide or in this case, we're going to use an herbicide, you need to pay attention to the weather. Today, tomorrow, even yesterday was perfect weather for spraying. Please read the label whenever you're doing any type of spray. Read the label over and over and over again. That is your best friend in terms of putting down a chemical, because it will tell you exactly how much to do and when to do it. And for herbicides specifically, I used some things like atrazine and 2,4-D where I actually have grass, and then where I have 100% weeds, like in between these beds, I used Roundup. Most of them work better when it's warm. So we're in the late winter here in eastern North Carolina. I did not want to apply it the last couple weeks. We've been wet, we've been cold. These herbicides work better when the plant, in this case these weeds, are actively growing, and that's not going to happen when it is cold out. So yesterday was our first upper 50 to 60 degree day. I was all ready to spray, and then the winds started to pick up, and you can't really notice it right now. The winds are just starting to pick up again today, but it was too late. You do not want to be spraying when it's windy, so please check your forecast. In this case, make sure it's above 50 degrees for your daytime temperatures, and then ensure that you have little to no wind. Our forecast yesterday was really windy. We had 20-mile-per-hour winds, too windy for spraying. If I'm spraying in this path, I don't want to get any drift on these roses. They're fairly dormant. It probably would not impact them as much as if this was, say, the spring. Nonetheless, any wind will take that onto your plants that you don't want to kill. So I looked at the forecast today and tomorrow, another really nice day, and it's warm, but our winds were going to just start to pick up, and they're just starting to pick up now in the afternoon. So I made sure to spray mid-morning when the wind was as light as possible. So read that label. It will tell you when you need to apply, temperature, wind conditions, things like that. But get familiar with your forecast source. In the future, I'm going to do something on the National Weather Service. A great website is weather.gov. It's weather.gov. You can do an hourly forecast and see what's going on. I highly recommend it. So for today, I was spraying weeds. Where I have a thick turf, I was using atrazine and 2,4-D. Centipede grass, which I have, is very, it can be impacted by 2,4-D, so it's recommended to use when it's dormant, or just be careful in the summertime when you use it that the application rate is right. I didn't have to do anything to the roses this time. Again, in the last video we covered putting down a pre-emergent, but what I will do in the coming weeks, if I see a weed, especially if it's away from the rose bush itself, I'll just blast it with a little bit of Roundup. Roses are super sensitive to Roundup, so don't spray when it's raining. Don't spray when it's windy. Don't spray anywhere near the rose itself. But if the weed is far away from the rose bush, have at it, and then do hand pulling by the roses themselves. You want to stay ahead of these weeds, because if you get them when they're early, they won't be as much of an issue. So the thing I want to cover today is in between the beds, and you can see I've got this marker dye. I have 100% weeds. So the goal this year, we'll see if it happens, is I did 100% Roundup, or I should say not 100% Roundup, but I didn't do atrazine or 2,4-D here. I mixed, according to the label instructions, 3 gallons worth of solution, and I completely soaked these beds, or the paths in between them themselves. So you can see that the weeds have been gotten pretty good. This blue marker dye is really, really good. It shows me exactly where I sprayed. I make sure I wear rubber boots, long sleeves, gloves, the whole 9 yards. So the plan is, and hopefully on this video you can see the blue marker dye, completely get rid of the weeds in between these beds. And then as we warm up into May, I'm going to put down some sod. So you should be able to see the difference. Again, here we have excellent turf. Everything's good to go. Maybe a little spot treatment here and there. Got some wild onions, but overall the turf is in really good shape. As I pan this way, you can see increasingly more and more blue dye. That is where I sprayed, where we're about 100% weeds, at least more than 70%. So this whole area between these beds, between this bed with the crepe myrtle and azalea, in front of my shed, and then as I pan back, if you've seen my climbing roses, right in front of it, all of this is 100% weeds. So I'm going to try to get rid of it with the Roundup and then go from there. We'll update you on that. Sod is not the hardest thing to install in terms of, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to install it, but it is very labor intensive. But the first thing is I've got to get rid of this vegetation. Incidentally, while I wrap up this video, this is our other garden where we've got the climbing roses and the azaleas. And even over here with the crepe myrtle and azaleas, notice the lack of weeds. We put down a pre-emergent in the fall, early winter. That's prevented most of the weeds. Again, it won't stop every single one. And as I come around to the backside, there are some weeds that have emerged. They are far away from the crepe myrtle and azalea, so I hit those with Roundup this morning. So as you're managing weeds and as we wrap up this video, read the label over and over again. Know how much to mix, know what you want to apply, be really familiar with the label. Know the weather. You can't control the weather. You can't make it rain when you want and dry weather when you don't want it, obviously. But this stretch of dry weather was well anticipated. All I had to do is ensure that I sprayed in the early morning because our next couple of afternoons were going to be windy. So yesterday I just didn't get out here in time. It was too late. It was windy. So it wasn't going to be a good day to spray. Now, our next shot of rain is not for a couple days. That will give this Roundup a chance to kill the weeds, and the 2,4-D and the atrazine a chance to kill the weeds in the turf. I hope you found this video useful. Check back. This is a video blog of our rose garden. Anything that comes up, I talk about. If you missed our video on weed prevention, fertilization, and lime in the late winter, it's a good one. It's a long one, but just view below and you'll see one of those videos. We just did that one. Until next time, I appreciate the new subscribers. If you like this channel, if you like these videos, comment. What do you want to see next time? What do you want to see more of? And then please share with your friends. I certainly do appreciate it.